players that just missed rushing for 10-plus touchdowns, Josh Allen had 9, and then 5 backs had 8. Chubb, Marlon, Mack, Drake, Raheem Mostert, Melvin Gordon. Switch teams. Interesting. So let's start with the quarterback, Josh Allen, who had 9. Lamar Jackson had 7 on the ground rushing in for a score. Who runs for more touchdowns next season? Josh Allen? Reigning MVP Lamar Jackson?
Oh man, that's a toss-up. It's hard because rushing TDs are kind of finicky each year. Like you could have your best season of the like Julio Jones is a great example. Like he's had some crazy, yard like 15, 1600-yard seasons, and he's only got like 4 or 5 touchdowns. I think it's just one of those finicky things that it's hard to predict, and it's not really a true measure of like your skill level. Sometimes it's just opportunities. Like sometimes you just fall at the 1 yard line more, and it's just the way it kind of goes. So that one's hard for me to predict. I'll just throw out Josh Allen because he's a bigger guy, so I think they might use him more in goal line situations, whereas Lamar is a smaller guy, so he's might be a little more prone to injury or taking big hits. So just based on that, I'll take Josh Allen.
Agreed. You sold me on that one. Drew?
Same. I'm going with Josh Allen. Just kind of piggybacking off what we talked about earlier, that we're going to have a bigger timeshare with J.K. Dobbins and Ingram, and the fact that they're going to limit Lamar's rushes, especially when you're beefing up in the red zone and on the goal line. You never want to have any freak accident happen to Lamar, especially if he's your feature. So with Josh Allen, going back to the Lamar thing, all eyes, all the preparation is for Lamar Jackson. So you can bet that every single defense is going to be out for number 8. On the other side of it, Josh Allen, he had a good year, but it was more of a team effort. So especially with their division, I think Lamar's going to have a tougher division to be able to surpass his stats again with all those great defenses. I think there'll be a better chance for the Bills defense to take over a rebuilding Miami offense, seem to be rebuilding Tom Brady-less Patriots. And again, it seems to, we seem to look at the Jets to have another struggling offensive year. I think that defense will definitely be poised enough to put Josh Allen in situations where he'll be able to see the end zone.
Clean sweep. And 2 of those backs that scored 8 times. Marlon, Mack, Melvin Gordon. If you're on the clock in fantasy, who'd you rather have, Mack or Gordon?
Mack, easy.
Easy, okay.
Just for fantasy purposes, I don't know about – I think talent-wise Melvin Gordon's a beast, but, I don't know. I just don't trust him. He kind of took a lower deal to go with the Broncos, and they got Phillip Lindsay already, so I just don't see his role being big enough to where he can outproduce what Mack could potentially do next year, where Mack has a actually legit quarterback now, and they have one of the best offensive lines. So I think the potential for Mack is much greater next year.
Not worried about Jonathan Taylor? Drew?
I'm super high on Jonathan Taylor. I went back and forth. I love Marlon Mack. I had him last year too on my fantasy team. So it's hard for me to say, but I think with the arrival of Jonathan Taylor, it's not that easy to get that much production in the Big Ten. There's some big defenses out there. So he carried the load. He showed he can do it. I think that's the reason why they took him high. Marlon Mack had a couple years to prove that he's a feature back. I feel like some games he would, and some games he just outright fell flat on his face. I love the kid. I just think Jonathan Taylor is just a better prospect overall. And at the same time, with a timeshare like that, I don't think he'll be featured as much as Gordon. I didn't really like the way that Gordon left either. There's something about him that I didn't really want him on the Chargers. Me living in San Diego, kind of rooting for the Chargers also before they left. But I just have a feeling that that's going to be someone that they look to, especially in the red zone with a smaller Phillip Lindsay in their lineup. They're definitely going to run both, but I think Melvin Gordon with his pass catching ability. Drew Lock, second-year quarterback. A lot of threats out there, but Melvin Gordon is pretty sure-handed on the check down. I think he'll definitely reach those touchdowns, or at least get him close to the goal line. He's going to end up with that goal line carry anyways.
So Gordon over Mack right there for you, huh?
MG 3, or is it 2?
I gotta break this tie, man. I asked this because I don't love either player. I had Mack the year before, but like the writing's on the wall, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll take the guy that I think the guy that got paid. We'll go with Melvin Gordon. He got paid. Phil Lindsay seems unhappy. Maybe he's out of town. I don't know. We just saw Devin Booker and Royce Freeman out of town. So, I mean, it could happen to Phil Lindsay, especially if he's unhappy. So, yeah, they just paid Melvin Gordon. I'll go with him simply because of that, though. Not because I love either player. I probably wouldn't draft either. Might be on my blacklist. But
money talks, man. Money talks.
It does. It does. All right, another stat. Guys with over 5 yards per rush. Starting with the most, a pair of quarterbacks, Lamar Jackson and Kyler Murray, and then the running backs with a quarterback sprinkled in. You got Raheem Mostert, Gus Edwards, rookies, Tony Pollard and Devin Singletary. You got Derrick Henry, of course, great year. Matt Breida, Mark Ingram, Nick Chubb, QB Deshaun Watson. That's 3 QBs on that list. Jackson, Murray, Watson. All right, real quick on the quarterbacks before we hit the running backs. Between Jackson, Murray, Watson, are those 3 more valuable than pocket passers in fantasy this year?
I think it kind of depends on the league you're in. Because, you know, some league scoring passing TDs are 4 points, I think, and rushing TDs are 6 points. And then the rushing yards, obviously, it's 10 yards per point usually, and then passing yards is 25. So I think in that kind of scoring, they're definitely more valuable. And then I think, you know, all those quarterbacks you mentioned are also pretty damn good quarterbacks in their own regard. So, I mean, just leaving out the rushing, I think they're going to have big years, especially, you know, Kyler with the offense he has and getting D-Hop. Like, I really think they could do some big things this year. So yeah, I like all of them, I guess.
More valuable, Drew? The running quarterback?
I'd say so. I mean, you talk about dual threat. So, I mean, if you don't see those passing lanes open, there's got to be a rush lane open. So especially, you know, how far that running quarterbacks has taken it in fantasy this year, there's a reason why they drafted a little bit higher. It's because they produce more. So in our league, you know, the video game league and the standard league, half PPR, full PPR, whatever it is, I feel like you do have to kind of game plan for what type of league you're in. But, I mean, I feel like that's worth a shot, taking a risk on possibly gaining an extra, you know, 60 to 80 yards or a rushing touchdown.
Fair enough. Let's talk about one of the other backs. Raheem Mostert. Should he be the guy in Frisco?
Yes.
Will he even be on the team next year?
I think that's a yes from Drew, no from Paul.
I don't know. It's just well, it's interesting, the whole contract situation. I mean, he's still on his rookie deal or whatever, the contract they paid him. So I don't know. I don't know if he's going to win that one necessarily because he just started and he just had that the big year last year. But obviously, if he's there, I think no doubt he should be the guy.
Yeah, I don't really think he's earned that regard to, you know, threaten the holdout. He did have a great year last year. It seemed that when Raheem was on the field, the offense was just flowing a little bit better. So they had the exact. I mean, for Tevin Coleman and Raheem Mostert, they actually had the same exact number of carries for the whole year. They're about the same age, but you're going to compare Raheem Mostert's 5.6 yards per carry to Tevin Coleman's 4.0. I mean, regardless, you're going to get production out of both, but I mean, that's almost 2 yards per carry. You got to give a kid the start.
Who doesn't love a come-up story, right? But no, he shouldn't be the guy. I mean, Kyle Shanahan, I know he didn't single-handedly go get Jerick McKinnon, but that's another option, another guy he has to replace Mostert. Tevin Coleman, he was with Shanahan in Atlanta in a timeshare with Devontae Freeman, so that's 2 timeshare backs. Jeff Wilson Jr. last year for the 49ers, he was utilized the first month of the year at least. He scored 4 touchdowns in weeks 2 and 3. I know that's just 20 and in the red zone to the green, hit pay dirt. He did that in his limited role. So I just see a pattern. When Shanahan was in Cleveland, he had Terrence West and Isaiah Crowell. You remember those names? Man.
Well, what's the definition of the guy, though? Is the guy 60% of the carries? Is he 50%? Is he 70%? Like, I think he'll get the most carries. So by definition, I guess that would make him the guy. But does the guy have to be, 70% or 80% or only 60%?
I guess if you're asking me, I'd say anything over 60-40 would be respectable to be called a workhorse. It's tough to play the position, man. So if you're asking me, I say if it's as low as 65-35, when you kind of dive into the details, I consider it, in my heart, I'm not like, yeah, it's a workhorse back, but hey, if he's putting up numbers and he gets 1,000 within his role, then cool. You just earn that. You just put in that work. That's how I'll look at it. But I mean, Shanahan can plug and play. In Houston, he had Steve Slayton and Ryan Moats. We have to go back 5 teams ago for Shanahan to when he had a feature back. And that was Alfred Morris, Washington. Since then, man, the odds are against – Alfred. I remember
boy,
that.
Alfred.
Yeah, man, but the odds are against Mostert. I think it's fair what he's asking, though. He makes $3 million. Tevin Coleman makes $4.5 million. Supposedly, he wants to be in that ballpark. I respect it. I don't think it's happening, though. I just don't. So, Drew, you're the one that thinks Mostert should have the job, and I think you're right in the regard of he's the best player there in that backfield. Maybe it's recency bias, but I don't think any of us are impressed with Tevin Coleman. Are you, Paul?
No, I mean he's good in his role. He definitely shown he can run between the tackles. He's not just just a pass catching guy, but he's most valuable. Where he's getting some carries and he's also getting some receptions. That's kind of where he thrives. I think at best when he gets in space. So just based on that, I think he could be more of that receiving type back, and Mostert can kind of carry the load on in the ground. So that's kind of how I would envision it. But who knows how Shanahan might kind of try to start it out slow just to keep him fresh for the later in the year. So things like that could definitely come into play.
That's a good point. It does sound like you think he has a chance, though, to be the breakout back. It does sound like that.
Yeah.
Okay.